Hi, Jim.
Hi, Becky.
Good evening, all.
Hello.
How are we all doing?
Okay.
I see we have all the finance committee members that expect to be here that we're all on. So the 6 of us on, and Melody will not be joining us.
According to her email, yes.
So can we call a meeting to order?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, first, sorry for me being away the last number of weeks between being out west and dealing with family. Sorry to be missing you the last couple go-arounds.
We missed you too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bob. Okay, with that, and we have Parker. So you're gonna talk with us about OPEB, about the OPEB process? So
that is the rumor.
Okay, so why don't we, I don't want to tie up people's time. Bob and AJ, when do you expect capital planning to join us? Ellen and team.
So Ellen is not available tonight. So I think Bob and I are prepared to just review the requests. She did ask other members to join if they could. And Bob, I believe she told people 7:15. Was that,
yes,
is that your memory?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see if they actually join at that point. But even if they don't, I think we're ready to go at that time.
Okay, that would be 7:15.
Yeah.
Roughly. Okay. Okay. So with that, maybe so as not to tie up Parker, do we want to start with going through the OPEB exercise, George?
Yeah.
Parker?
Sounds good.
Okay, so why don't we start with that?
Well, let me see if I can share a screen here. I'll share the presentation I put together for you guys.
I'll get you hooked up. 1 second, Parker.
Okay.
Okay, so you're a co-host.
Okay. All right, let me see which screen wants to share. Oh, this one's a good one as any. All right, so all right, let me put this over here. And swap screens. So I'm showing the right one. So you guys hopefully can see a screen right now.
Yep.
Looks good.
Yep.
All right. So we'll go through this. Ask questions anytime. Don't feel like obligated, like you have to wait. Give you the quick 30-second overview about our firm. We've been doing this stuff for a long time. I've been doing it since the late 80s. Our firm's been around since 98. It just means I'm old. But we do this for about 500 municipalities around the country. We have offices in Connecticut, Nevada, just set one up in Texas last week. We're in 37 states, Europe, South America, Australia. Okay, lots of fun there. Anyway, the good stuff, why we all came. So, so the short answer is, what happened to the liabilities? You got about the total OPEB liabilities, what we used to call the liability, is $3.569 million. It was $3.2 million last year, which you're gonna go, well, how come it went up by so much? Really two things. One is the interest rate went down. That was about $140,000. And your liabilities expected to go up by about $225,000 a year just due to the passage of time. People are 1 year closer to getting the retirement age. Therefore, you have less time to discount those liabilities. Your assets had a good year, went from 624 to 712. That's the good part. But your unfunded liability, they now call net OPEB liability because I guess unfunded was too complicated, went from about $2.6 million to $2.85 million. But you're about 20% funded, which puts you in about the top 20% across the state. And we'll see that in a little bit. So you guys, compared to your peers, are doing very well. Probably not as well as you'd like to be doing, but again, you're doing very well compared to your peers. The financials, the income, go ahead.
Yeah, just a question regarding that.
Yeah.
When you say compared to peers, are there like red lights, yellow light, green lights? So I'm just trying to get a sense for.
again, there's no obligation to fund OPEB, so you don't have to fund it if you don't want to. So in that sense, there's plenty of people who don't fund it at all. There are some who are extremely well funded, but those tend to be unique circumstances. Either they happen to be, a town that has a little football team that plays there. They generate a lot of money from that. We put a lot of meals tax money in there. So that's worked out for them. And let's see here, I just lost my screen for a second, but hopefully you guys can still see me while I'm going through this. So yeah, there's not a really red, green, yellow. I think the thing is really to look at is what the forecast looks like for the future. And we'll show yours in a little bit that down the line, because the way your demographics work, your expenses and payments will accelerate in the out years. So it's the kind of thing you're going to want to look at. And that's about 3 or 4 slides from now. So we will get to that very shortly. In terms of, again, P&L type stuff doesn't really make sense in the municipal context, but these are the rules we have to operate under. So service costs, the only one I'd really draw your attention to. This is the value of benefits being earned during the year by your active employees. It's about $160,000 or about $2,500 per employee. So if you think about it, if Johnny or Mary make $50,000 in cash compensation for the year, they're getting another $2,500 a year in terms of deferred compensation. That'll be payable in retirement as a medical benefit. So that's really the easiest way to think of that. Again, your discount rate, the interest rate we use to calculate the liabilities went from 4.5 down to 4.25. That's simply because, guess what? Interest rates have gone down over the year. And while it makes your OPEB liabilities look worse, I would argue all things equal, I'd rather have interest rates go down. Yeah, your liabilities won't look as good, but on the other hand, when you borrow money, you pay less for it. And that's an actual.
The screen's not showing anything right now.
Yeah, it's blank.
All right, well, let's see what the story is on that. And I know all right, let's bring that again and try this again. All right, sorry about that. Not sure what's going on with that. All right.
There it is.
Back, okay. Not sure what's going on. Whatever, we'll sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with the screen, but we'll make it. If I have a problem again, I'll try it a different way, but using the PDF version instead of the PowerPoint version. So, and actually, why don't I just do that now? Because I mean, it's going to be distracting to do it this way. So, share the PDF version instead. Come on, there you go. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Sorry for the issue with the screen. Come on, people. All right, let's go to the PowerPoint instead. All right. It's not supposed to, sharing a screen is supposed to be the easiest part of this, but no, come on. This is not supposed to be difficult. All right, well, apologize for why this is being more difficult than it's supposed to be. Anyway, hopefully you can see the screen. I'll do it this way. Hopefully it'll be easier. So hopefully you can you see that screen?
Black.
Nothing yet.
There's a
right.
note that says double click to enter full screen mode.
Yeah, well, that's not. All right. Well.
It says you're screen sharing.
Yeah, it says I'm screen sharing unless you can't see it. So that's not exactly helpful. All right. We'll tell you what, since the screen share is seemingly not playing nice.
Well, I think your PowerPoint was working well. I don't know what happened that time, but.
Yeah, I know, but it's seemingly not working.
It's on now.
Here we go.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
back.
All right, it's back. All right, we'll go with it, and if it tanks, we'll do our best here, because it's not playing nice. No, you guys can see it, but unfortunately, I can't move the screen. This is
We see your slide 5.
yeah, I know. The problem is I can't move it to slide 6. That's the crux of the problem. Let me just try one other thing. This is not supposed to happen. Worked fine an hour ago, but alas, here we are. So. basics. All right. Let's go back to this. It's supposed to be relatively easy. All right. So hopefully, can you see the screen now? The PDF version of this? All right, good. Well, it's not the ideal way, but we'll make it work. So the short answer is, again, you know, the interest rates went down. But again, my point being is, ultimately, if your choices are interest rates go down or interest rates go up, I would rather have the interest rates go down because that's actual cash borrowing costs. That's money out the door. So all things equal, if I'm going to have anything happen, I would rather, quote unquote, have my OPEB liability look worse, but my actual cash out the door borrowing costs go down. So again, that from my perspective would be the ideal win. Ideally, you know, they both look great, but if you have to choose one or the other, I'd rather have my borrowing costs go down. So again, over time, though, again, we do these valuations every 2 years and we do an interim valuation in the in-between year. So fiscal 20 was the full valuation. You had good experience. Your liabilities dropped by $530,000. That's a good thing. Now, the discount rate, the interest rate we used to value liabilities went down as well. That increased your liabilities by 370. And then we had to make certain assumption changes, which increased it by 290. So all in all, they basically all washed out is the short answer. So, but overall, you had good experience. So the question is, well, what are all these assumptions that happen? You know, how do we take these projections that we're doing for 100 years when you hired Johnny or Mary today at age 18, and we have to follow them for the next 100 years to see what their costs are going to be? How do we do that? Well, one of the biggest ones here is the discount rate. You know, what's the interest rate we use to bring all those future payments back to today? Lower interest rates equal higher liabilities and vice versa. Termination rates. What's the probability that somebody you hired today is still here next year, the year after, the year after? Okay, they make it all the way to retirement age. What's the probability they retire at 56, 57, 58? Okay, they elect to retire. What's the probability they like to take coverage? What's the probability they like to cover a spouse? And then after all that, what are healthcare costs going to be every year? Because we have to project those for the next 100 years. So what are healthcare costs going to be in 2030, 2040, 2050, and so on? You know, I say this all the time, and I know it sounds, you know, somewhat bad in a sense when I say it this way, but I mean, I can guarantee you that we are wrong. And what I mean by that is I do not know when everyone's going to die. I do not know what healthcare costs are going to be in the year 2100. We make our best estimates as of today with the data that we have, but assuredly, we are not Nostradamus. I cannot forecast with 100% precision about what the future is going to be. So we make our best estimates given the data that we have. So with that said, again, your medical plan offerings, this benefits you guys. Your active healthcare plan is about $646 on average. That's somewhat less than the average we see. Normally, we're closer to $800 what we see in your area. And your Medicare supplement plan averages at $327. That's normally around $375. So you guys are getting better healthcare costs than your peers. So that is definitely helpful on the OPEB side. Go ahead.
Question.
Yeah.
When you say peers, what are the peers?
I'm just looking at, you know, statewide averages, or really in your guys' case, averages in your part of the state. So I'm kind of looking at thinking, okay, in your part of the state, what are people paying? So I'm saying, you know, in your part of the state, again, 800 and say 375 is what I would expect to see based on, you know, we got probably 100 clients in your general central mass, if you will. That's generally what we would tend to see.
Okay.
I see.
Can I ask you a question?
Thompson has entered the waiting room. I figure it's not my place to admit people, but if somebody wants to.
I got it.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Do you run any scenarios or assumptions for any kind of universal health care as a potential scenario and an outcome for the future?
No, because I mean, under GASB rules, we have to value the plan as it exists.
Yeah.
So we're not concerned about, you know, if universal health care comes or, you know, Medicare goes away or anything in between. Those are not really relevant for purposes of GASB purposes. Those might be the kind of things you want to use for planning purposes, but they're not really relevant for planning purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So then the obvious question is, okay, well, we're about 20% funded. Where does everybody else stack up? Well, PARAC put out a survey about 6 weeks ago. We've been doing this survey for, I'd say 5 or 6 years at this point. So we've been doing ours a lot longer, but you'll see 81% of people are less than 20% funded. you guys are pretty much right at that 20% number. So you guys are really, again, in that top 20%. So again, you know, you look at, again, you got a fair number of people that aren't funding at all. You know, you got, you know, 20% of people that are still less than 1% funded, you know, 70% and change or less than 10% funded. So again, you know, it's not to say that you guys are doing phenomenally, but again, you're compared against your peer group, not against some objective standard. So it's all well and good to say, hey, you should be 100% funded. Well, that's great. But, you know, I can tell you we have, among the town side, I want to say we have 3 towns that are 100% funded in the state. And again, we've got about 500 towns we work with. So you can do the math and see it's a pretty low number. So then the question is, okay, my peers, you know, we pick out some, you know, we can pick out any number of them. We picked out some of similar sized entities, basically, or as close as we could get. So again, you'll see that the discount rate changes all these numbers. So if you have a low discount rate, your liability is going to be super high. If you have a high discount rate, they're going to be low. So it's tough to look at liabilities by themselves, but your service cost per employee is about $2,300 and change. That's, again, as I said before, your employees earning that in terms of deferred compensation, payable as medical during their retirement. You know, the statewide average is about 4,400, so you're much less. You know, Deerfield's a little bit in your range. Hadley's a little bit less than you are, but Hadley's got a 5.5% discount rate. That's why they're less. You know, Belchertown's a little bit more, but they only got a 2.5% discount rate. That's why they're more. So it's kind of difficult to compare that because of just discount rate changes. But your funded ratio at 19%, the only one really close to you is Hadley at 23%. And your per covered retiree cost, you know, what does a retiree cost you on average? It's about $3,600, which is well below the statewide average. And again, that goes back again because your guys' premiums are less than the average. Because you guys have lower premiums, guess what? Your costs are less. The only one that's really close is Hadley, because again, they have premiums that are comparable to your premiums. So again, it's really a game of what your premiums are is what's really going to drive those numbers. So that's service cost per employee. If we have various breakouts, this you see it's 2,300 and change right here. If you had police, fire, you know, sewer, you name all the breakouts, we can show it that way. We don't have that for you folks. So here's a slide I was referencing before. And I just want to see if I can blow this up a little bit to make it easier to see. Okay, a little bit. I guess my point here being is what I'll be able to show you is that, so you can see that the liabilities go from 3.5 million, you get to, you know, over $20 million by 2055, to which the answer is going, well, then why even try? There's nothing we can do about this. The numbers are insane. Why bother? So what we do is in the right-hand side, we give you the numbers in today's dollars in a present value context. So you can kind of figure out, compared to today's budget, what do the numbers look like? But the problem is your 3.5 in 2055 in today's dollars goes to $7.5 million. So, and your pay-as-you-go cash out the door cost retirees goes from $86,000 to $240,000. So the point is, I don't know that you guys, and again, in the next 20 years or whatever, it doesn't change all that much. But you get around 2040, 2045, it really starts to spike up. So my point is, sometime in the next 15 years or so, I would argue you guys need to really start looking at your plans, trying to find ways to address costs. I mean, part of that is not a whole lot you can do about it. The state doesn't let you guys go beyond 50-50. Your healthcare costs are already pretty reasonable. You can't change eligibility in the state of Massachusetts. They set that for you. So really, it's going to be a matter of, there's not a lot you can do about it, honestly, in your guys' situation. It's really going to be in your hiring, and hopefully people stay longer and don't leave early. I mean, that's really what are going to help drive your costs down. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, in your guys' case, there's not a lot we can do about that because you guys have already done all the things Massachusetts allows you to do. In other states, we do all kinds of things. California, Texas, Florida, I can do all kinds of things. In Massachusetts, unfortunately, you've already done the things you're allowed to do. So with that, I'll, take it to another screen and say questions, but I mean, obviously, and I can make this so you can actually see it. But anyway, so that's pretty much what I've got. I'm happy to answer particular questions people have. I'm not,
Bob and then Jim.
Parker, just correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear you saying is the only thing we have to do that's discretionary is the number of employees we have.
Yep, that's basically it.
Okay.
I mean, all the other things, you've already done the things you can do under Mass General Law.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Jim.
Yes, Parker, how are our OPEB funds invested specifically, and what sort of a return do we get on them?
Well, you guys are invested reasonably aggressively, so we assume, in your guys' case, I'm going to pull up the actual report for a second so I can do the right thing here. There. So, come on, people. Your guys' target rate of return is about 6.77% a year. So you have a fairly aggressive portfolio. So again, in your guys' case, investments, you guys have already gone pretty much as far as you can go on the investment side. So again, I think that's really you've done the things you can do there. I mean, you can certainly put more money in. The more money you have in the trust, the more money it will earn, in theory. But again, the town also has other capital needs. Beyond OPEB. OPEB is one thing, but you might need a boiler, you might need a fire engine, you might need a police car. I don't know. So there's other things you need. OPEB is one of many things. And so people always ask me, how much should I fund? I'm always going to say more, but I don't have to say, hey, how come we don't have a school bus? Hey, how come we don't have a police car? So I think you got to look at the entire group of things you need. And this is just one of many things that needs to be at the table for capital needs.
When you say that we are aggressively invested, what are we aggressively invested in?
Well, we don't track the individual stocks and bonds you guys are in, but your portfolio is relatively aggressively invested. I mean, I can pull the exact, let me just look here real quick and see what your guys' allocation is.
This is a portfolio that you folks determine?
No, we have nothing to do with that. That's Rockland Trust, I believe, does your guys' portfolio. I want to say, so yeah, we're not involved in investments at all. So if I look at your guys' stuff, you're at 18.5% large cap, 15% small cap, about 10% developed markets, international side, 7.5% international emerging markets, about 33% domestic fixed income, 6% international fixed income, and 9% alternative investments. So it's a fairly aggressive portfolio.
Yeah, sure is.
There is.
Yeah. George, and Susie.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. A couple questions. So
yeah.
I think I saw in your actuarial report, you're actually assuming 5.65%.
Yeah, I just looked at it. Yeah, it's 5.65. Yeah, I just pulled it up. Yeah.
So if we have a model where we're looking at the balance, we're calculating the interest each year, we're adding 50,000, and we're repeating that year over year. If we want, the purpose of the model is to change the 50,000 and to see what the effects are on the amount of funds accumulated at certain points in the future. It would be perfect, of course, if we could match up to the reports you have that show the liabilities in the long run, for each year. Obviously, that's our goal to some extent. So 5.65 is the right thing to use. So for the towns, I understand that once we get to the total amount of the liability in the fund, then at that point we can start using the fund to pay for those liabilities, paying
Correct.
those bills.
It's like a pension plan. Yep.
And so my understanding is we would get the look at the actuarial report each year, compare that to what the balance is after we've been making the payments, and adjust the balance up if it's running short, always making sure we keep up with the liability. So at some utopian point in the future, when we get the liability funded, then it's just a question of making sure we keep it funded.
Yeah.
But for me, looking at the costs, the service costs that go up year over year,
Yep.
and watching how much they're going up, it seems to me that would you say then at that point where we have 100% funding of the liability that we can just pay the full amount? Or would we want to step it up, slowly ease into that?
No, I mean, ideally what's going to happen is when you get to 100% funded, you ideally contribute the service cost each year, and then you withdraw the benefit payments each year. Because the service cost is what was earned during the year by the employees, and the benefit payments are what's being paid out for the year for the past employees. So you look at the net of those two numbers, what your cost or your withdrawals are each year.
Well, that's interesting to me. So if say we're up to $200,000 a year in service costs,
yep.
and we withdraw 190,
yep.
and then the cost is 200, so we have a $10,000 adjustment. We've been paying as you go. each year. We're at about $87,000 right now, and it continues to rise.
Yeah.
At some point, we just don't want to all of a sudden say, hey, now we have zero cost because now we're taking out of the fund. We have this amount built in the budget to cover the retirees' health insurance. So there's got to be some way. Well, I guess we'll have to think about it. Some way where, we ease into that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a cliff, and you can decide if you want to ease into it or jump off the cliff all at once. I mean, so your point is valid. I mean, you can definitely, how do you want to ease into that is entirely up to you and or any future board to do.
And we just need to look at models of the numbers to do that. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Susie, and then Jim.
I think you said that another important strategy is to keep the employees we have as a way of preventing early retirements or having to pay out. Is that true? It's not only
well. Yeah, I guess my point is you have to look at it in one way. If you're only looking at the OPEB liability, that's correct. The longer people work, the lower your OPEB liability is going to be. Because if Johnny retires at 55 or Mary retires at 55, they're going to get 35 years of OPEB benefits, let's say. If they retire at 70, they're only going to get 15 years of OPEB benefits. So your OPEB liability is less. But here's the thing. That 65-year-old active employee has healthcare costs of, say, $20,000 a year. If they're being replaced by a 25-year-old employee that has healthcare costs of $5,000 a year, your net actual cost for that new employee is $5,000 of healthcare costs, because whether you pay them as a retiree or as an active, it's still the same $20,000. Yeah. And if their salaries are more than 5% less for that younger employee, your overall net out ahead of the game. Your OPEB looks worse, but your overall budget costs are less. So it's a matter of, if you're purely focused on the OPEB silo, yes, the idea is prevent early retirements, have them stay around as long as possible. But again, OPEB is just one portion of the balance sheet. So in the income statement, so I don't want it to be the driver of everything, but if you're only looking at that one thing, yeah, that's the way you go about it.
Yeah, Jim.
Back to how our OPEB funds are invested. Do we have any control over this outfit that is doing the investing for us? I mean, how was this outfit chosen?
Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan would be the one who kind of.
Hey, everybody.
That's the actuary's job.
So this is Ryan. I happen to be here on the meeting. So just to touch base briefly on that without going into full details here. The funds themselves are invested through Bartholomew, which is an investment company that the town utilizes. They've been around for, I think, almost 30 years. They have 250 different municipalities that they manage. And they're required by law through the treasurer to invest the money using safety, liquidity, and yield as the three priorities, leaving safety as the number one requirement. So they do a phenomenal job managing the funds, making sure that the money is invested where you can see that we're seeing a great return, but again, that they're in a safe capacity for the municipality.
Yeah, and again, those are choices you guys make. I mean, again, you can ask them to invest more aggressively if you want,
or less.
You guys make.
Yeah, well, look, 6.77% is not a great return.
Well, it's actually 5.65. I misspoke. You're in a more conservative portfolio.
5.65%. I mean, the S&P 500, went up almost 3 times that, or 4 times that.
Last year, you guys are at 1404. I'm not talking about what you actually earned. I'm talking about what the target rate of return is.
Okay.
What you earn in the given year is not really relevant as far as discount rate goes. What we care about is what is that portfolio designed to achieve? So your portfolio is designed to achieve about 5.65 is what it's designed to achieve. Last year, over 14% because the market had a really good year. But again, all your bond stuff dragged down the portfolio last year because, as you know, when there's not a lot of yield on bonds these days.
It's a terrible yield, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. George.
Yes. So I know private industry for defined benefit plans have to fully fund their long-term liabilities. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, private DB plans have certain rules about funding under, ERISA that we have to fund. But I mean, those aren't really relevant in the municipal context. But in the municipal context in Massachusetts, pension plans have to be funded by 2040 under the municipal rules in Massachusetts.
That includes OPEB?
No, it does not include OPEB. OPEB is not a pension plan. OPEB has no funding requirement.
So do we have any legal requirements?
None.
Associated with?
There's no requirement whatsoever to fund. That's why I shared with you a slide showing there's a lot of people who don't fund at all, and you have no obligation to fund. The town I was at
pay
last
as you go is an option for us if that's what we choose to do.
Yeah, it is. My only concern would be, as I showed you the out year slides, in 2045 and 2050, those pay as you go costs start to get rather steep, and so the question is, how do you, I think it was you that mentioned it before about, avoiding a cliff. The alternative avoidance of the cliff is to not have, dive off a cliff in, 2045 and you can no longer make payments. So I think the idea is, how do you smooth out that payment stream in the good times when you have the money so that you don't have a shock in, 2045 and go, we can't make these payments.
So it's prudential to do it this way.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my money. I can't tell you how to do it, but I would think smoothing out the cost, the taxpayers of the future will be very grateful to avoid those kind of spikes.
Susie.
And I thought that we talked about this last year, and the legislature is putting out that goal, and it's not a law, but if things don't start, if people aren't prepared for their employees with OPEB, the state's likely to tell us we have to do it because they don't want us to fall off a cliff either.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't predict political stuff, but I would say it's unlikely to me to see they're going to mandate OPEB funding, simply because in order to do that, they almost have to repeal Prop 2.5. There's just not a way you can make that happen in a Prop 2.5 world.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's welcome to the Finance Committee.
Oh, yikes.
Any other questions for Parker? George, do we have a copy of this presentation, or is it something that we can have access to?
I can send it out to you as soon as we get off the phone if you like.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll send it out to you guys, and yeah, I'll send it to Ryan, Becky, and George on one of the emails I have. So I'll send it out to the three of you guys as soon as we're off the line.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Parker.
Well, thank you for having me, and apologize for the technical difficulties, but hopefully I'll be able to see everything. And if you have other questions you think of, just reach out and we'll get you where we can.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, maybe we can jump into the minutes from our last meeting, from the March 8th meeting, and see if there's any changes, additions, deletions, whatever. Susie.
In 1C, it should be the MLP manager, not chair. That's my suggestion.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Anybody? Go ahead, Susie.
Another one is in G. I looked back in my notes to find out. Jim said that Gail's salary was increased substantially because of her workload being substantially increased, and I didn't find that in my notes.
My memory is that, Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that she's taking on the responsibilities for managing the MLP's finances.
That's right.
But that adds just an hour, going from 7 hours a month. I mean, 7 hours a week to 8 hours a week. So I just
No, it's much more than that.
I talked to Steve Schmidt, who is doing the finances for the MLP. He told me that was not the case, that what Gail is taking over is the weekly, the bi-weekly submission of warrants. So she'll be handling the payment of the payments of the MLP, that he will continue on doing what he's been doing, the other work he's been doing on finances and preparing the budget. And what was written in the letter to the personnel board was that the hours would increase from an average of 28 a month to 32 or 34 or 36. but it was, 4 to 8 hours additional per month.
Does that help, Susie?
Yeah, so I would just say that her workload is not increasing substantially. She may carry a workload that the MLP feels needs to be compensated differently, but the workload itself is not changing substantially.
Well, it's changing significantly because of the shift that has taken place. Steve was flat out most of the time, trying to manage all the billing and running around and working with Becky, and Gail has taken all of this over, and Steve wanted to step back from his role a bit because of the huge time commitment, and Gail really has her finger on all of the bills that come in and the payments that have to be made and the vendors that are owed and all the rest of it. So that's why the MLP made this change, and it is a substantial one.
Again, explained differently to me by Steve and in the letter written to the personnel board.
Well, I'm on the MLP and I'm aware of what's going on, needless to say.
And then you can review the letter that was written to the personnel board.
So do we need to make a change to this?
Well, all of this is immaterial because what Gail has paid has nothing to do with the taxes that our Shutesbury residents pay. It comes out of MLP, it comes out of subscriber funds. And so this is really in a separate world altogether. And we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about it, frankly.
Bob, you're on mute.
The question for me is that the minutes, do they represent that it was said at the last meeting that Gail's workload went up substantially? I think that's what was said. We can debate this issue of the pay raise separately, but we're talking about the minutes here. And I think that was said at the minutes. I think it's an accurate depiction of what went down at the meeting. So I think we could leave this as it is.
I think the letter to the personnel board was made available to the FinCom, and if not, it should accompany the minutes.
Fine, but that was what was said verbally. We didn't have the letter at that point, at least I didn't know about it, so.
So I make a motion, we approve the minutes of.
I have one other item.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. In section 3, number 5.
Yep.
The employees will receive a 3% increase.
Yep.
The COLA is 2.42.
Wasn't this, so I think this item is for
unionized town employees. Sorry. Yep, I see. You're right.
That's the police.
Yep. Never mind.
No problem.
Okay, Susie, you're on.
So I make a motion that we approve the minutes for
Second.
March 8th.
Second.
All those in favor? Or I'm sorry, I've been out of this for a while. We got to go through the, I'm sorry, George.
Arvanitis, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton abstain. I wasn't around.
Yeah,
okay. Capital plan projects.
Okay. So Bob, it doesn't look like any of our committee members are joining, but I think.
Did you say, AJ, did you say 7? Did you say 7:10 or 7:15?
I said 7:15.
Do we want to cover another
sure
item before then, just in case? Or
sure.
Just in case?
Sure.
All right, so why don't we go through the budget review, fiscal year 23 budget review.
All right. There have not been a lot of changes.
There's a couple to fix. In the expenses, page 2, line 57. Oh, so first of all, I'm a Luddite. And I'm looking at these numbers and I'm trying to figure out if the machine is screwing up or something happened. But on line 57, the budget for 21, no, that's not the problem. Well, the budget for 21 says that it was 484 and that the actual expense was 484. So I was just looking back for how much money the planning board has anticipated needing. And I looked, I thought it was probably around 1,500, but they says it was budgeted in 21 at 484. So I'm like, nah, that's a funny number, but maybe it was.
Yes, it was. It was the level funded from the prior year.
And then that's what they actually spent was 484.
They overspent because the finance committee helped them. I believe it was one of their members had the $500 fee.
Oh, yeah. Right. I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
Somehow I've, oh boy. I can't share. Just give me a second because I lost. Hey, there you guys are. I lost the screen.
Don't lose us.
Okay. I think that's the budget. Okay. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay. So you were looking
57.
at
Line 57.
Okay, it's right at the bottom. Let me try to get it.
Yeah, I see it there. So it was just making sure the program is working right. To have the budget and the actual be exactly the same and be a funny number seemed like, oh, everybody in the right column.
So she's talking about right here.
Yeah.
So the budget was 484 and I believe it was over. So it indeed was exact amount.
Okay. And then custodial wages on line 60. Did they not get bumped? Oh, well, you know what? I wondered if mine was the right copy.
Well, no, we didn't get that copy.
Yeah, do we have the most recent?
No, we don't.
No.
I didn't get this. The copy I have is the old one too.
Old meaning March 8th?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll be sending this out. I can send this all out to you. I had put right after the meeting, I put in all those funny things.
Right.
I think Susie also was pointing out an issue that with some of the smaller, like where is it? I'm talking about the 2.42 rounding is causing some issues. Like for the police chief, it's coming in at 2.40. It's very difficult to get it to hit right at 2.42.
Oh, that's understandable.
That's okay.
So
yeah, it is okay. You should probably make your percentages to 1 percentage place instead of 2.
Right.
1/10 instead of 100th.
What's on the screen is more updated than the one that I got in the mail today. So that's good. Those are probably all fixed, the ones I have on my sheet.
Yeah, I had fixed them before. I don't know what you got in the mail because I haven't had email.
No. That's enough.
No. Question, please.
Yeah.
Back on line 57, the planning board, just for my edification, I see the lines going across there and it goes up to 7,500. Is this because of this big solar thing that's happening that planning board needs that jump from 20 into 22 and 23?
If you'll recall, we met with Deacon right before we closed the budget. And that's where he asked for a couple of things. He asked for up to $1,500 or $1,000 just for the people that would need their houses appraised and determined not to be an issue of conflict of interest.
Mhm.
And then the other, I think that was 1,500. And then he asked for 6,000 in case they had to do a bunch of filings that were anticipated that would have, and posting in the newspaper. So that's how he came up with that figure. And yes, based on the potential for solar that has not come forward.
But did he spend that money in last year's budget, or is it's still undergoing?
No, it's in this year's budget.
This year's budget, but it's not been spent, right?
Right, and you can check that on your expense report.
Yeah, right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think some of it was spent, but not all.
Yeah, Becky?
Yeah.
I had a question on the revenue side.
Okay.
For fiscal year 23, the levy ceiling, shouldn't that be 6,073,603 instead of 5,954?
Okay, so we the reason okay, so you're going from here to here, just like most normal years we've been able to do.
No. I'm looking at the levy. The levy ceiling is just 2.5% of assessed value. And 2.5% of assessed value is 6,073.
Becky, we talked about this at our last FinCom meeting.
In depth, because and I had all the charts to back it up. The issue this year is because of our being close to the ceiling, this number cannot be more than 100%.
Understand that.
So if
it was 6,073, it wouldn't be it would be well under 100%.
No, it'd be well over.
Yeah.
This is the amount of tax. So if we take the, so if we do the calculation using this assessed value.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So we can't use that 2.5% calculation.
Because of the new, yeah.
You have to.
We're being stopped short of a normal calculation because of the proximity to the 100%.
Okay, gotcha. All right. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry.
No, you missed the last meeting, so that's a great question. I appreciate it. Okay, anything else on this side, Jim? As you can see, we have not yet I have not yet made any adjustment to the excess levy capacity. And the consequence of that is that I believe we're still over in the budget. Sorry, of course, where the Zoom is sitting right on top of my cursor, so I had to move it.
Okay,
so right now, given our current, it looks like if we were to finalize the budget today, we would take this $116,091 and add it to our excess levy capacity and balance the budget.
Right.
Wow.
Reduce the tax rate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big number.
Do these expenses now include the market realignment and the
They do not yet include the market realignment. They only include, but they do include the school budgets.
Did you increase all salary lines by 2.42, including the people in the market alignment?
I did all the 2.42s, but I have not yet done all the market alignment.
Right, so it won't be $30,000, it'll be $25,000 that we increase, the portion without the COLA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just thrown out, rough numbers.
So that's
Did you,
sorry.
Were you able to update the rubbish number, the trash collection?
No, it's the closing is supposed to be on Thursday, but there's some issues that we have to work through. We just received, the issue is arising from the fact that our current disposal firm is going through Chapter 11, and we just received notice last week.
Oh, great.
I guess we got a price that was too low, huh?
We put them out of business, Bob.
So, well, actually, yeah, that was the $80 a ton. But we're trying to add an option to the contract for hauling to also include disposal. And that's why there might be another few day delay till the 29th to try to get bids on that and utilize the fact that we have an RFP out and not go back out later. So we're trying to get that done now because we're going to need that bid price too. Because the one firm that is interested, it's named F&G Recycling, and they're interested in taking over the business, but what they're not interested in taking having the contracts assigned. They want to renegotiate the contracts, which can only mean they want more money.
Yeah.
And they also want to demolish the current burning facility and make.
Oh, you froze.
Yeah, she did.
Whoops.
Burning facility, where's that? There's an incinerator or something?
Yeah, I think so. The Murph, do they have one?
The Murphys.
Not the Murph, but down in Springfield.
She's still frozen there. She's like
Yeah.
Everglade glass.
She might have to log off and reboot.
Yeah.
Technology.
So what exactly is happening with trash? I'm still confused about how the negotiations have gone, who we signed up with, what does the future look like next year?
This is something that we're gonna have on the agenda. We'll have someone from the recycling committee on our agenda when they're ready to present all that, Jim.
Okay, all right.
Which could be it could be the next meeting.
All right.
They don't have all the information yet. That's what Becky just said.
Yeah, all right.
She said that they were going to close the numbers on Thursday, but now there's a problem with doing that.
Yeah. All right.
We got time.
Susie, do you have a question that
requires
Becky?
The other question that was floating around, and maybe we'll just find out when recycling comes in, is the company that's considering the contract going to be a side loader or a back loader? Because the other piece would be the expense of the bins.
Yeah, my question exactly. Yeah, that's what I was concerned about.
So we'll find out when the deal gets closed, I guess.
Yeah, I had a question on the revenue side. While we don't have Becky, maybe you guys talked about this also last week or a couple of weeks ago. The total town assessed value for 23 there's no change from 22. Now, is that just because we're not ready? Kevin is not ready to put something in there that we expect to have something in there before town meeting, or is this where we expect to end up as we go into town meeting?
Well, yeah, he did the final aid recap in the fall this last year. So those numbers are the most recent numbers we have from Kevin.
Yeah, that's 22, but Jim's asking, but what is our estimate for 23? They're expecting, Jim, that it's going up.
Exactly, that's my point. I wouldn't expect it to stay flat. Yeah, and right now, we see no change in assessed value in 23 versus 22.
Just to point out one thing, if you look at those numbers on that sheet, it did say that a proposed assessed value was 227, but then it closed in the fall when they did the reappraisal at 242. So they're doing the same thing this year they did last year.
Yeah, okay, let's make
right?
Yeah, Becky, maybe you have something to add to that?
You're on mute, Becky.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's anticipated that we're going to have another big increase, even larger than last year.
Okay, now do we expect to put something in here before town meeting that's different from flat?
If he gives us an estimate.
If Kevin gives an estimate.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
can we ask
And
him for
what's,
one?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, I agree with Jim. I think we should try and get a reasonable estimate. Let's be conservative, but we know it's going to be higher than 22s.
But as a question, can we use those numbers if that's a bit of recap or, you know?
Yeah, it's our estimate. We can use it. We've done it a couple of times, trying to be a little more realistic about where the tax rate could come in at.
It's not counting your chickens before they hatch.
Well, that's why you have to
Carefully.
It's
Well,
about,
yeah,
well,
you know,
I get being conservative, but in this environment, being flat year over year just seems that seems more than conservative.
well, we weren't flat last year,
Yeah.
and I don't anticipate we're going to be flat this year, but I don't want to, you know, until he confirms that the work he is doing is pointing in that direction, and it's definitely going to happen, which hopefully we will know soon.
Okay, so there is a process in place for Kevin that he might have an update soon. You used the word soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Becky, I thought the state was forcing us to use older figures for some reason. I sort of remember you saying that a while ago. I don't quite remember the details.
Sorry, what do you mean older?
Well, I remember when you were describing this a month or two ago that a DLS or the DOR said, well, we need to use these older numbers for some reason. I just don't recall the entire.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not recalling either, but I think
No.
I haven't made any adjustment to them until I get guidance from Kevin, and I'll reach out to him and get that.
All right.
Let's not forget what our job is. We don't have to show the revenue numbers at town meeting. It's not voted on. It's just there to help the voters understand the budget, the impact of the budget that we're voting on. So there wouldn't necessarily be a state requirement for what we put on this particular report. I'm not saying we shouldn't get the best estimates we can. We should. But Jim, I don't think there would be a state requirement.
Well, I think Jim is likely talking about the other part of the revenue where the state requirement does say that we have to calculate the 2.5 and we have to go through that process and add in the new growth and all of that. So that's, and then that other piece is right there in the mix. So I can see where he might have thought that, and that we're not required, but we've started to do it to try to make sure that the estimates that we're using are closer to reality. So we have a trend.
Oh yeah, we want to know.
Yeah.
So, but really, we're being super conservative the way we are at this moment.
We're not done. We're still in the process.
Right, but at this moment, if we stay with last year's number,
we couldn't be more. Well, we could have gone down, but yeah.
Forest fires, stuff like that.
Yeah, but you're right.
Careful.
I wanted to know if anybody's heard, we are using the governor's cherry sheet numbers at this point. Do we know anything about rumbling at the legislative level for cherry sheet?
Did yeah, the House figures, are the House figures out? No, they're usually out in April. Yeah, they're not out until April.
Okay.
Typically, and then Senate follows in May.
Okay. So that might change, and we'll adjust it as we can here.
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Back to the expenses. I was going to ask about back to the expenses.
Okay.
The budget we have right now has everything in it except for the market alignment on the expense side. Is there anything else on the expense side that's missing? We know that the trash hauling is going to be could be adjusted.
The big one is the trash hauling and potentially the disposal line as well now. And and the COLA. I think I don't have the final confirmation on the retirement figure. I had to guesstimate that. I know Caitlin was working on it, but she went through so I have to go back and review her work because she was kind of confused what I was asking for. She did give me a number that I think I told you last time was within like $25 of what I had estimated, but we just need to go back and make sure she included all of our liabilities with Union 28.
Susie.
And we also have some options of doing some things such as adding to our OPEB fund. And we will probably need to have a discussion about that. If we come down to the bottom line and we have revenue, we can decide what to do with it.
Yeah, along that lines with OPEB, I was looking at the minutes. I think it was the minutes from the last meeting. And George, were you going to send something out to us, or me? According to the minutes, I thought
that would be Parker's newest report.
That's the
actuarial
report, the actual actuarial report,
which would be interesting to study.
Yeah.
Susie, can I ask you? I don't know if this is the right time, but did we talk about getting the latest or updated school budget sent to us after our last meeting?
I thought that at the close of the meeting, Becky said she did have it. Dan wanted to be sending it to the FinCom and the town administrator, not the liaison, because I'm a person who would change from year to year. So I notified the Union 28 that Becky and the FinCom, which goes to Jim, is where the address is, the URL or is the address that those should be sent to email.
Yeah, but we haven't seen it yet, right, Jim?
No.
I don't think I've seen it either.
Oh, I thought Becky at the last meeting.
What I had was is the February 17th the final one?
I believe so.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought it wasn't final yet.
No, it got voted.
Yeah.
So can you send that to us, Becky, at some point?
Yep.
Going back again, I'm sorry, I mentioned George on this OPEB report. It is the actuarial report, and it says, I guess, Becky, you were going to send something out, an actuarial report to us, according to the minutes?
That's Parker's report, which he's supposed to send out to us.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at item 4 from the minutes. It says Becky will be sending out the OPEB actuarial report.
Yep. And I will send that. George, I did send it to George.
I did see it. Yep. Have fun, folks.
Sounds like good reading.
Yeah. Is there an audio version of it?
Well, we had it today.
It was, yeah, it's intense. I will get that right out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, cool.
I will tell you.
I've had trouble sleeping lately, so I'll be looking forward to it.
Keep you awake, I think.
Well, I'll tell you, when you look at it, it's overwhelming. There's so much information, and it's using language that, few of us are going to understand, and terminology that's just really hard to tell. But, I give you all a hint. There's the report that was evaluation of June of 2021 has the most updated numbers in it. And there's a table, I think it's an Exhibit A on page 4. Write this down, something like that. It's a table. And I found it really helpful because you can see how much we're spending every year. He's estimating that we'll be spending every year on OPEB expenses, that is the health insurance for the retired employees. And it shows our current balance. It shows the interest income he's expecting. It shows our 50,000 contribution, and it shows a change in the balance. And then it shows over the years how much we're funding. And it shows that relative to how much we should be funding and what he thinks we will need to have in the fund in the future.
When you say should be funding, that means if we were to fund
100%.
the total liability.
Yeah, if we funded the total, that's right.
As of what date? That would be like, is that the 20?
Every year, he shows it for every year. So you can see it year over year. But there's a column called, it's a ratio, funding ratio, and it shows how much we'll have as a percentage of how much we should have. Now, I was under the impression that we had to be 100% funded in 2040. Mm-hmm. So I looked at 2040, it's about 30% on the path that we're on right now. He's saying that we would have about 30% of it funded. Turns out 2040 is not an issue, so maybe I didn't need to look at that year. But I think it's interesting to see what he's projecting our liabilities will be in the future and what our current funding, where it brings us relative to that. Now, is that important for the analysis that we need to do? You know, it doesn't tell us what we need to do, but I just think it's interesting to look at. And it's something that made sense to me because it's real numbers. You can see what our expenses would be, and you'll see how our fund is growing. You'll see his calculation what the fund should be. And it just gives you kind of a good sense. You know, I have the model, and I already put in the expenses off that report. And we can tinker with the model. Given that 2040 is not a drop dead 100% funding year, I think that changes this equation a lot. And I think what we really want to ask ourselves is how much do we want to spend on OPEB? This year we're paying $86,000, or last year we paid $86,000 plus we paid $50 to go in the fund. So we paid $136. The 86 was in the health insurance line. It was the portion that was for retirees. And then we funded 50. Next year he says 93 and 50. So now we're up to 140. You know, for me, what number can we come up with and say, we're just going to fund that every year? And that covers some of the health insurance costs and funds the liability. And then we can see what the fund has and see at what point in the future, the way I have the model built, what point in the future do we start drawing from the fund to make sure that we stay close to that number. And so we know in our budget, there's one specific number that we're going to fund every year between the two pieces and try and live within that, run the model to see what that number might be and how we can manage it. And the only other thing I would say for that is whatever number we think, because right now we have 90,000 in the budget plus 50, just rough, and index that number for inflation. So if we say it should be 200,000, you know, it might go up to 205,000, you know, after a few years. So we don't need to get into it, but that's the way I'm thinking. I hope that everybody, you know, I can demonstrate it and we can all see how we feel about that.
George, just one thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but our number of our total cost per year is going to naturally grow as people retire. So we're going to be kicking in more just because we'll be paying more for retirement benefits every year. So in that respect, we can anticipate that we'll be increasing how much we spend just by natural increase in the cost of retirees' benefits if we continue to pay for them the way we're paying for them now.
And he has that number. He calculates that number for every year out to 2070, I think.
That was the service cost number, right? That he was referring to.
I believe so, yes. Yes.
Susie, and then Jim.
I'd like to put this on an agenda, and we are also going to try to develop our timeline going backwards from town meeting. So I feel like it should be on an agenda, and we will have that actuarial report, and we'll all give it more thought and have our papers in front of us to talk about it.
That was good.
Yeah. Jim?
I really think, this is not a change of subject, but I really think we're looking at only one side of the equation. When he quickly rattled through, or Brian, rattled through the Parker, rattled through
Ryan too on the investment.
Ryan, rattled through how Bartholomew Investment was handling our money. This is not being done well at all. I mean, the return is really piss poor, I think we ought to take a look at that, because after all, we're putting a ton of money there, and if we aren't getting much of a return, and we're trying to figure out ways to increase the contribution we make, we maybe we're sort of fighting ourselves in a way. Or
he did. Can we talk about this when we have it on the agenda? Because
okay, all right.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Becky, you'll just send us this report, this actuarial report, which is where this will where this all started.
Okay, so there's for FY20 and FY21, and there's a little fact sheet, and there's 2 reports for each year. So there'll be 5 documents. Okay.
Thanks.
Fabulous.
We've got Michael Broad here now, so he's the other representative from other.
Okay, so we got a capital planning team here.
I like
So
this
we
icon.
want to jump in.
Yeah.
Capital planning.
Yeah, Jim, I've got a list that maybe I can share my screen that shows all of the projects that were submitted to capital planning.
All right.
I don't know who has to grant me.
Oh, I do. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I thought I usually do you first.
Okay, no
I
worries.
didn't do it. There you go.
Okay. All right. You guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So I think I should also just remind everybody that I think our plan that we discussed at our last meeting is that we would basically just review this list with the committee tonight and give you kind of the necessary background information, and then that we would deliberate and vote on each of these items at our next meeting. Is that everybody's recollection?
My recollection.
Yeah.
AJ, I just wanted to clarify that what you're going to vote on is the funding source.
Right. Yeah. Correct. And I guess to that end, I should also just point out that like some of these items in here are sort of the rounded number that I think is kind of what we would probably imagine seeing in in our annual meeting warrants. And then in other cases, you're just seeing like a specific number for a quote that the department head submitted to the committee. So, Bob, do you want me to just kind of run through this list? And
you go ahead, AJ. You're on it.
So we've got 2 requests from the police department. One is for the purchase of 3 of those digital or electronic speed boards. That these would be solar powered, and Kristen has identified 3 locations that she would like the police department to install these in. Highest priority being Town Center, and then the other 2 being somewhere on the January Hills, and I think the third was Pelham Hill Road. No, sorry, it was January Hills or Pelham Hill. She was going to sort of evaluate which was the higher priority, and then the lake, I think was the third location. All right, and those are. She's got a quote that's $3,888 per board. So we're looking at a cost of just under $12,000 there. Then the other request that was approved unanimously. The other request from police department is for a hybrid SUV police cruiser to replace the Ford Taurus, which is experiencing some mechanical, I guess, issues, wear and tear issues. And we've got a quote from the from Kristen for $53,277. Capital planning voted to approve that 4-1. Then the fire department.
AJ?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question on the first one.
Yeah, sure.
Those 3,888, are those installed, or are we using town resources to install them, or
the police department there's not going to be like a permanent installation. I think these are can be kind of moved and relocated.
Yeah, let me just clarify that, AJ.
Yeah, please.
These units do not require any AC power. They're battery backup units. You bolt them to a telephone pole. They've already cleared the permissions to use telephone poles for them. So they can actually put one on Pelham Hill Road or West Pelham Road and then move it if they decide there's a better location for it. And so the cops can do this without hiring a company to install them.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, then fire department has submitted a request for a Ford Interceptor SUV to be used by the to be hired fire chief. This is to replace I think a vehicle that they inherited from the police department and that is having some various mechanical issues and some significant rust issues, according to Walter. And the cost on this would be $45,000, and that's going to include kind of the special, like moving some of the equipment from the sort of special equipment that exists on their current vehicle.
Becky, do you have a question or a comment on that?
Yeah, I can't see anybody's hands. I
remembered the 37,000, the streamlined quote, or 36. Did he round it up to, I thought he ended up closer to 37 or 38. He was going to reuse the light bars and he doesn't need most of the police package that it's $14,000 of the police light and radio package in the other cruiser.
All right.
We might have higher, so that's why I was confused.
Yeah, I know that was the quote for the vehicle itself. I thought there was still a cost to have his person, do kind of the special equipment work.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But I might be wrong about that, so maybe we can flag that and just.
I think my recollection is accords with Becky's on this.
Okay.
Now, since it's been voted for, I don't know if we voted for it with that figure attached to it or not.
Yeah, I was looking at Michael's minutes, and I don't think we actually
didn't have a figure, but my recollection is the same as Becky's.
Okay.
So let's get this figure and nail it down.
Okay.
I'm reluctant to say we voted for 45,000 because then we'll spend 45,000.
Yeah.
Walter represented to us the last time he came was something like Becky had described, that he was going to be able to recycle some of this stuff, and his guy that does mechanical work with him would help him install it so they wouldn't have to have the dealer do it.
Yeah. See, I thought there was still a cost though associated with that, but let's clarify with Walter.
Yeah.
Susie.
Email him.
Do you know if the pricing anticipates any trade-in values for what we have? Because used cars are more valuable right now.
Yeah. So, well, Kristen obtained a trade-in estimate that was kind of absurdly low. I think it was $1,500. Is that right?
Yes, it was very low.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure, I mean, the vehicle Walter's replacing is significantly older than that. So yeah, there wouldn't be anything there.
Okay.
But I think, Bob, you made a suggestion about a dealer in Greenfield, I think that.
Yeah, well, I hadn't sent, I got to get the VIN from Kristen, but he said that car's worth a lot of money. They would love to buy it.
Okay.
They're just looking, they're desperate for used cars. And this is an SUV, 4-wheel drive. It's an all-wheel drive Ford Taurus that runs well. It's no mechanical issues with it. She did a great job, and she did some other maintenance, but it's a good car. And if it's going to be worth something to the town, I don't know how we manage that, but certainly it's worth more than $1,000 to $1,500.
Yeah, one thought she had was if she can't get a good trade-in, that she would keep it online to keep miles off the other two SUVs that are starting. One of them, I think, is already at 90,000. So that's the one thought she had, was to help preserve and make sure that other SUVs go longer. But we'll see what Greenfield says and go from there.
Yeah, okay, I'll look into it. But I gotta get the VIN from her.
Yeah. All right. Next up is the highway department. They've got a significant project here. This is proposed replacement of the 10-wheeler dump truck. And this has a price tag of $225,000 for the chassis and body. And this was voted, approved 3-1 with Steve Sullivan abstaining. I don't know, Bob, is there anything else to add on that? I mean,
no, go ahead. I might make a general comment about this after we're done presenting. So,
all right.
The other quote was for 320,000.
Right.
So we were, and that was the first quote he was able to get. So that was really a lot of money. And this is a lot of money too, but dear God, he got it down almost 100 grand. So
yeah, I mean, I think we should mention that Tim, I think in particular, did a lot of work and got a bunch of requests. And I think we should also mention that I think everybody understands in the climate right now, this is a vehicle that we probably wouldn't actually get for quite a bit of time because there's such a backlog and these vehicles are so hard to get our hands on. So it could be a while. It could be a while before it's we actually get it.
And also it typically takes 6 months anyway because they build them. So they usually take 4 to 6 months, but I guess they learned it. Leverett's took almost, like closer to 10 months or a year.
Yeah. Susie.
So when you said it includes the chassis and I think you said the bed, you mean it's a whole truck, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a whole truck.
No problem.
Okay, just checking.
and believe me, there were different options discussed about, old body, and anyway, but yeah, this is a whole truck.
Okay.
Okay, next up, I think everybody's heard about this. So the various kind of finance departments want to purchase this Vadar software suite. And so what you're seeing there is the cost of the software, and the quote that we have for this includes an annual kind of service charge, but the portion we are discussing here is basically the cost of the software itself. Not like the annual subscription fee.
That we put in the budget.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next up, Susie has her hand up.
So does that mean if we did buy this software, there would be a reduction in the operating budget for the old system that had a maintenance fee?
Yes, slightly.
Yes, very slightly. And I think the other,
but not this year.
Yeah, not for this year, but I think with this vendor, we've got a locked in annual fee.
5 years.
5 years is about? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
And with our current vendor, they have a certain percentage increase.
15% every year.
Yeah.
Right.
So it would be, we will experience some savings, I think, going out, after this year. Okay, next up, for the elementary school, we approved or recommending an engineering study for the school roof replacement project, next phase of it. And so we are estimating $60,000 for the engineering fee. And this is really, I mean, Bob has brought this up at our FinCom meetings. This is kind of an effort to get ahead of the very likely possibility that we'll have our request for state funding denied once again. And so the thought here is that we can't just kind of wait for this, the state to fund this project. That we just can't defer this longer. So that's the thought there.
Yeah, AJ.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure there's a strong likelihood in the same fiscal year we're going to have to actually replace the roof too. That should something be plugged in here for roof replacement for this fiscal year?
So so this was discussed in the committee. Bob actually recommended a much larger figure here that would include construction costs in addition to engineering. I think the thought is that this engineering study is going to actually produce a cost estimate for the construction costs. And so just in terms of process, I think there was not unanimous agreement about this, but I think most committee members felt like the appropriate thing to do was to fund this capital request now. And once we have a good estimate of what the construction costs are going to be, which will be one of the deliverables, presumably, of this engineering study, that we would bring that to a special town meeting.
Okay. Let's see. There's a lot of okay. George, I think, was next.
Yeah, but I think Bob and Becky want to continue this vein of conversation.
Okay.
Right. So let's finish that.
All right. Bob, I think you're up first, and then
okay.
Becky.
I just want to say, just to reflect what AJ just suggested. Yes, I did suggest that I did ask capital planning to support a money for a construction of the roof. I feel strongly that that should be a #1 priority for us. As we all know, we can return that money to our coffers if we don't need it, if we can adjust how much we use, if we're getting support from the state, or we can just spend the money and get the job done without the state, which is, as AJ said, is a very strong likelihood that that will be where we go. I think we should do that now rather than later. I think we do it in this fiscal year because we need the money sooner rather than later. We do have the engineering money here, and then if the engineering is complete, we can start planning the construction part of the project. So we'll see if this issue continues to roil. But I would continue to support in the finance committee that we look at this and think about this as part of our budget or part of our capital request for town meeting.
Yeah, Becky, on the same topic.
Yep.
Yep.
So AJ, just a couple corrections in the scenario you laid out. So when we get when the engineer completes the work, they'll do early on, they do a rough estimate, but they will actually assist us in putting it out to bid and then work through construction as an advisor. So what I am hopeful that we can do here, like we did with the other section of the roof and some other projects, is that we get a cost estimate. This project is likely to be over $500,000. And so it's a huge amount of money, and how we finance it will be a discussion. I know Bob wants it financed by free cash, as we hear on Nextdoor and many other places, but that needs to be discussed. But the main issue is having a sound estimate when we have a sound bid price. Right. So once the engineering's done, if we can get it, we can get the engineering going right after we secure the funds at town meeting. We'll have 6 weeks before the end of the fiscal year that hopefully before the summer's over, we will have a bid price a solid bid price that we can go out on a special town meeting, which we can only do in the summer as long as COVID is threatening, and get the money secured for the whole project. That also gives us the benefit of knowing the results of our of this last, this 5th application to the MSBA for the roof. So it has two benefits. It has having an accurate number, and it also makes it so we're not duplicating and spending funds that the MSBA will cover a large portion of.
I'd like to ask that we put this on our agenda in a future meeting, have a fuller discussion of it.
Okay. George, and then Susie.
So, well, my first question was, do we need to do this if we get the grant? The answer sounds like it's yes. So then it makes sense to do it whichever way we go. But we are filing for the grant, right? I mean, we have to pursue any funding we can get from the state. We're definitely going to try that, right?
Yes. The SOIs, the finance, the school committee signed off on the application last week. Select board signed. There's one alteration. Rita has to re-sign it. There was I think a date change or something. And so she's gonna sign that, and the application is just about final. I'm working on the last draft with Caitlin, and hopefully we'll have that final tomorrow. It's due
Excellent.
Friday.
Thank you.
All right. Susie.
So does the MSBA application include the engineering, or do they break things apart?
It includes the engineering.
Okay, so if we go ahead and fund the engineering and then we get the grant, that money comes back to us through the grant. Is that right?
The unspent grant, we'll have to do, some paperwork, but yes.
Okay. And is Natalie Blaze still on this case with us?
She is. I did not get a response to my last email, so I have to reach out to her again.
And the anticipated answer on the MSBA's on this round is in June or something like that?
End of May.
Oh
beginning
wow.
of June.
Terrific. Thank you.
Right. Should I move on? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the last project is a conditional one. If we do not win the small library pilot grant, then we voted to make another annual, of our annual contributions of $25,000 to that new library building fund, as we've done in the last, 9 years or so. Okay, so that's it. That's all. That is a grand total of $440,000 or so, but we might have to update that fire department figure. Michael, is there anything else to add? Oh, you're muted.
Nope, that's everything I remember.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments on what AJ presented? Bob.
I'll just say briefly, I was, might surprise you to know that I voted against the 3 vehicles and also the library grant money. I might have an opportunity to talk about this when we review these items in our full meeting, but I have reasons for that. I think you ought to hear it. Well, at least that's my view. So you will hear it later.
Okay. George.
When we're evaluating how to fund these, can we have, the capital planning committee have estimates of potential items that will be requested in the subsequent years? In particular, the track and the information about the track. The best information we can have is going to be helpful, because we have to not just figure out how to fund these in the upcoming fiscal year, but we have to figure out how to fund them in such a way that we're in a position to be able to cover and manage future capital expenditures.
George, just one point on that. We just got the information that you all got today from Doug down at the region. And I don't know if we handle capital expenses in our committee that are from the region. I mean, maybe we should, but that's a whole different account, is it not? We pay, it's not part of our capital budget. Is that so, Becky?
Well,
it weighs into our capital budget because we're still responsible for the funds. In the past, the amounts have been debt excluded and have not been as significant in recent years. But right now, so you've all seen the new figures based on the 1.5, but I spoke to Doug today, and one of the things that was really helpful in understanding those figures is it's not just the 1.5. There's also an allocation for the $2 million for the roof project down at the region within those figures. And every year they don't get the SBA loan, they push that out a year.
A limit to that too.
What?
As we know, there's a limit to that.
Right. But they haven't reached their limit yet.
Okay, so just to finish my thought, so, whether it's the capital planning's responsibility or not, we should get that information because it's the finance committee's responsibility to take those things into account, is my point. So I would just hope that when we have that next meeting, that we have some of that preliminary information of what we can expect in the next 2 to 3 years as far as requests from other departments, and specifically the region, because that clearly is going to be a challenge for us. And hopefully we'll know about the library grant too. So that's another week away, right? 2 weeks away?
7th, she said.
Yeah, the 7th, right. So whatever that is, yeah, it's 2 weeks. So that's important stuff for us, because we can look at this and I look at this and I say, oh, this isn't bad. We can definitely manage this, but we want to manage it properly. We want to manage it and think about the long run when we do. It's my only point.
George, don't forget the roof is going to cost about $600,000.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not, but it's potentially out there.
Yeah, we have to consider those things. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else capital planning wise? Is there, AJ, to George's point, has there been any effort to update the long-term plan? I don't know whether it's a 25-year plan or whatnot. And I think this goes to George's point. There historically has been this long-term plan that gets updated on some basis. Is there anything
I'll be getting
going on?
that out by Friday, Jim.
Oh, okay. Cool. So that should help address a lot of what you're talking about, George.
Yeah, it's really going to be important. We're kind of in an unusual situation here.
Yeah.
Becky, can that include just some placeholder for the school roof construction?
Oh, definitely. Under the school, I'll put the region in. And because when I talked to Doug today, I asked typically what they have, it's usually debt excluded, most of the stuff that's been, but he's not talking about a debt exclusion, which is interesting because then we have to really plan for it. He
specifically refers to it as debt supported.
Right.
Yeah.
I think because of my conversation, because when it's debt excluded, it just drops on the top of the budget and you really have no
part of our budget.
But aren't we the ones who decide whether it's going to be debt excluded or not? We just know that they're going to bill us and we have to pay our portion, but
no, I believe it was voted debt excluded. I mean, the prior items were voted that way by the school committee.
The school committee can tell the Shutesbury Finance Committee what method
to
use?
End up doing the vote, but they write up the warrant articles that we approve.
Or not.
But yeah, but a lot of times you don't, it's a different process, like you were saying before, Bob. So it's like inverted. There's a letter that comes to the town, and then you have to decide if you're not going to approve it, then you have to put it on a special town meeting warrant. But a lot of times the projects have already been pretty much approved. So if it doesn't go on a special town warrant, you still have to pay it.
Right, sure. But let me ask you a question about, just for clarity. What reason, why would they construct or put this together that way? Do you know?
As non-debt excluded?
Yeah, right. What are the drivers for that?
I think it's because it's already very complicated.
Because of the CPA money, maybe?
Yeah.
That probably
might be what Amherst wants. Amherst may not want a debt exclusion.
That's only for the track, not the roof, right? The CPA money couldn't go for a roof. It has to go only on the track.
I would think not.
Right.
So all this debt is going to be budgetary then, according to what the plan is now.
Yeah.
And isn't that part of the whole regional agreement? Isn't that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we just shift which line our regional money goes in.
All right. Anything else capital planning wise? All right. Thanks, AJ, for leading us through. Next item I see on the agenda is the annual town meeting timeline. And I think, Susie, you referred to this a little bit. And I think we have an official date of May 21 for town meeting. So I think what the thinking is here is to build a timeline on what we need to do between now and then, and set in what we're going to do on what dates or whatever. Is that the thinking here?
Yep.
Okay.
So we know the warrant has to be approved by the FinCom. Is it 2 weeks ahead of time?
Well, we need 2 weeks. I think it only has to be a week, but we need 2 weeks because we try to get it. We used to mail it out and get the information mailed out, but now we put it up online. So, but we still would like 2 weeks because people need more time than a week to absorb anything.
So that'd be approve the warrant articles before May 7th.
Yeah, I think the end of April, beginning of May, we need to.
What about a May 3rd meeting?
May 3rd. Mm-hmm.
AJ, can you ditch your screen?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So we could schedule it for May 3rd.
Select board. Well, see, select board has to sign off, and they don't meet till the 10th.
Okay, so they want to receive it on April 26th.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Give me a second. If they received it on the 10th, that's less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, So they need it before the 10th. I mean, everybody ends up having meetings on off days just to get through this congestion, the traffic on it. But we could say that we approve all the warrant articles by April 26th. Does that help?
It would help get it to the select board on April 26th.
Well, you need it to be to them all done by the 26th. So do we need to go back a week from there?
Well, the select board needs to approve the same things that you guys are voting to your motions on.
Do they have to get it after us, or can they get it before us? I mean,
they have to get it after you. Do they have to? I guess it could be at the same time. So basically a joint meeting on the 26th?
Joint meetings.
Or we could meet first and because it's fairly pro forma by then. all of our debating usually comes before that. And now we're just recording votes. I don't know. We could look at the 19th.
I suggest that we have our vote before we meet with them, or if we are going to meet with them, because, you know, just simple math, having another 3 people just makes the meeting more complicated. I mean, we have our own work to do, and they have theirs. So
let's go for April 19th, that we approve the warrant, and then hand it off to the select board on the 26th.
Sounds good.
So the warrant and the budget will be ready at that point in time?
Well, usually they'd have to be ready because that's what we're voting on. We
could leave the final numbers in the budget till after May 3rd.
One of the warrant articles is the budget.
Right.
Yeah, we can leave that last.
Well, we need to, if we want to hand them the document that is us approving.
But but that number could be, you know, hopefully you can. But I'm just saying, if it's not ready by the 19th, that number can be given to them.
If we approve it on the 19th, or it's not ready on the 19th, we can meet again on May 3rd and change it or finalize it. One particular warrant article item, the budget. Right?
Yeah,
do we have to vote on every warrant article item in one night, or can we vote on them all and then re-vote one of them?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have flexibility. If we try it earlier, we can always go to plan B.
So we would try to get a bulk of them done by April 19th, and the budget final number approved on May 3rd, and then somehow the select board would have to meet immediately to get it done so that they're not pushing up against the time frame.
If they have some sense of what the number is and what the change is, they hopefully, if you change that one number, it's happened before. We've waited for final numbers.
But this year we're in pretty good shape. I mean, annual town meeting is going to be later than what we had planned, and we had been going through our normal process. The budget looks like it's in pretty good shape. You know, there's a few hanging items, but it's March. So, you know, in a month.
We're late in March, and we're talking about doing the voting on April 19th. And I'm sure we'll have an extra meeting or two, but, and we have the capital plan to nail down. So,
that's gonna be a big one.
I say we're already, and when I hear April 19th, I feel like it's right around the corner.
It is.
It is.
2 meetings away.
It's an oncoming train.
And we're tied to the tracks.
Another task we do is write the report. And that helps to have all the numbers down before we write the report. Jim and I drafted it last year, and we could add some final numbers to it, but, and we can do that. Let's see, that doesn't get mailed out, or the word mailed is now irrelevant, right? So that did get distributed to people, right? Before town meeting, the FinCom report.
I think we presented it at we had a pre-meeting with the town.
Yeah.
And I think we used it for that meeting.
Yeah.
And then maybe it was on the website. Was it on the?
Yeah.
It was accessible to the town.
On the town website.
Yeah.
But I do think in the past, it used to be printed in a mailing. And so now we don't have that hurdle, right? There's nothing.
No.
Is there anything going to be printed, Becky, at the end here to be mailed out?
No, not for town meeting.
Okay. So we have write the report, and that's going to go on electronically. So that's not a big deal. The scheduling of a question and answer, a presentation and a question and answer for town folk, that needs a date.
What about that Tuesday before town meeting, the 17th?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
What's that? That's May 17th?
17th, yeah.
You say question and answer. Is it like an info session or a
You presented the report and people
Yeah.
asked questions and so it's kind of a dress rehearsal for town meeting.
Yeah, and Paul Lyons moderated it last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
We'd have to ask him if he's available. Or he might be able to do it solo.
Ooh.
But that worked well, though, having it moderated.
I thought so.
Yeah.
So we need to find out if he's available on May 17th.
Good idea.
So if we're going to try to get a majority of things done by April 19th, and we are talking about a capital plan and OPEB review, is there anything else that we need to have scheduled before April 19th?
I'm not sure the OPEB review is something we're going to be able to get done in the next meeting or two. We can try, but because the OPEB review is more of a long-term thing. We have 50,000 committed. I don't know how much more we can change it in the current fiscal year.
Well, if we end up with some revenue that we could think about spending, maybe we would bump the OPEB now. I mean, we talked last year about possibly bumping it, and not always consistently, but at least dumping some money now and then.
Okay.
Well, let's have a discussion of that budget line then, at least, right?
Yeah.
50,000 in there now, plus we're paying for the existing outlay for retirees. 140, right, George?
Yeah, 50 for the fund, and roughly 90,000, 91,000 is his estimate for fiscal 23 for the actual out of pocket for health insurance.
Is that what we have plugged in now into our budget now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's a part of the health insurance line, which is at like 530 or 520.
Yeah, but that line, that includes the 90,000.
Yes.
I personally think we should leave it alone, but we can have that discussion, you know.
I think given, yeah. Maybe let the dust settle. There's so much going on this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how much more would we put in that it would have an impact in the long term? I mean, if we want to have it on the agenda and spend time on it, we can. I'm happy to show you the spreadsheet and we can talk about whether we feel like we can make a decision about that now or not. So we can at least give it a shot, like Susie asks.
Yeah, you might want to put in 10,000 this year, or, you know, I mean, move it to 60,000 a year and see where that, how that helps or does, you know, what happens.
You know, if you want, I can have the spreadsheet ready and we can just start talking about different concepts, and I just plug the numbers for each concept and we just see how it looks, and it gives us an idea of what different different funding options can do for us. So I think the model's pretty well set up for what we need to do. And, you know, certainly if people don't like the way it works and think there's other things we can do to it, I'm happy to try and refine it for the, you know, and at this point, then we just don't make a change. But obviously we want to have something. This is a long-term project, so we want to have a good model that we can all feel good about.
Bob.
One thing gratifying was what Parker said, was that we're in the upper percentile of people in terms of our covering this and financing our future obligations. I really think that's great. You know, I mean, it shows that we're being responsible and we're prudential about it. I personally think that if we have a small amount that's in our levy that we can put back to the taxpayer, it would be a nice thing to do. So let's not forget.
But if we don't fund those, he was talking about those expensive years in the future. And if we don't have a buffer against those, the taxpayers are going to get walloped. And like he said, under 2.5, we're not going to be able to fund that. So, you know, we got to consider that as well. We've got the 50,000 built in. It certainly doesn't look like if we take it out, it's going to help anybody.
I'm not saying take it out. I'm saying don't increase it this year.
So
yeah, we'll have to see.
At the calendar, we have April 5th and 19th schedule are our dates that are regularly meeting. And we need to talk about the capital plan and or maybe not OPEB.
What's the next meeting date?
5th.
Of April.
There's also May 3rd, right? We were planned for May 3rd, right, Susie?
Yeah, Yeah, it just in term, and by then it'd be like cleanup, like doing the report and checking how this year FY22 is doing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I would think on the 5th, we're going to need to review the most updated draft budget because it might have the trash numbers and it would have the market alignment.
Would we be able to have a copy of the budget a day or two before that meeting?
Oh, yeah.
When you say market alignment, we have the numbers. We just need to get them into the spreadsheet, right? That's
yeah. And we have one problem that we have to address too. The personnel board found there's one anomaly that they're going to discuss at their next meeting.
And then
make a recommendation.
The timing of that might not be good, Becky.
When wasn't it close to?
The 21st of April is what I got on my calendar.
No, it can't wait that long.
Yeah, I think you need to reach out to Peg and see if we can't schedule sooner.
Okay. The 14th. I'll try for the 14th of April. Will that be okay? No, the 7th. I'll try for the 7th.
Then we can incorporate it. Well, I mean, we might have to
meet March 31st, whatever people can do. Sorry.
And we might have to meet in between our schedule. We've done that before.
'Tis the season.
That's the season.
Yeah. So there's a possibility we would meet on April, where's April? 12th, if needed.
Or Thursday. I can be flexible. I am traveling at the end of April. I might have some limited availability in the last week, but I'm flexible. Thursdays, Wednesdays, whatever it takes to get this done.
Okay.
Are you still thinking there, Susie? I think that we've captured everything.
Oh, I wonder if other people have things they think we need to address. We know that on the 5th, we would review the draft budget. And on the 19th, we want to vote the articles and maybe we'll have the budget nailed or maybe we won't. And we need to do the capital plan. The way the grant announcement is on an MBLC schedule, which is April 6th or 7th, I don't know which. Our meeting on the 5th doesn't really work for that. So maybe instead of meeting on the 5th, we'd meet on the 12th and the 19th and have pieces of information available.
Well, how about a meeting on the 12th contingent on us winning the grant?
Yep. And so that would be just laying out the funding for that. We're doing all the capital on the 12th.
Well, if we did all the capital on the 5th, we just would have to review it on the 12th in the context of a library expenditure.
Okay.
I'm sorry, are you saying maybe on the 5th, our next meeting, we get into the capital and as opposed to the 19th?
Yeah. So what's our agenda next meeting, Jim?
It's getting big. We've got the budget draft update. There's the capital plan. We'll probably have the recycling committee in there with their proposal, or they'll review what they're recommending.
Could we talk about the school roof as I suggested on that night, or should we do it on a different night?
I wonder if we should move capital to the 12th, just straight up.
So we had a meeting specifically for capital. Yeah. There's a lot there.
Right. We'll take care of it very, very quickly, I'm sure.
On the 12th?
I can't be at that meeting. I have a select board meeting.
Oh, right.
About the 14th.
Yeah, what about a Thursday? The 14th.
The 14th
Thursday, the 14th?
for capital.
Yeah.
We can do that.
$6:30.
All right, 5/14 at 6:30.
That work for you, Becky?
4/14.
Or
Yeah.
Or
If I
yeah,
could get
don't
the personnel
rush it.
board in by the 7th or 31st. Yeah, hopefully.
Right.
So
And
what
then
did you move out? You moved out the capital plan, so it's now going to be the budget review, recycling, and OPEB?
OPEB? I don't know.
No OPEB? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to keep track of what you're doing.
What do you got, Jim?
I have OPEB for there
Okay.
for our next meeting.
So in April, we're meeting on the 5th, 14th, and 19th.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
And we can always adjust if we're blowing through.
We can always do an hour meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, what a concept.
All right.
It's probably only a concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And then drafting that report, do you want to pin down a date for that? Jim, do you want to do it a subcommittee and just bring it in, done?
I'm okay with that.
And
if anybody, and then anyone else that's interested in participating.
yep, and that's going to get
We'll
done by May 17th.
Jim, to your point, we'll all get invitations for that meeting, right?
Yes. Yeah, everybody will see the date.
If I can make it, I will.
That'll be put on the that'll be on the calendar. The subcommittee meeting will be on the calendar.
And the sooner we can get a draft and everybody can see it, because, you know, we might want to make changes to it, not the facts, but maybe the things that we present.
We have to vote on that too, right? I think we did that last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess that would happen.
So maybe we would do that
meeting
May
before
3rd.
the 17th.
What day did you suggest?
Well, I guess I said whenever FinCom meets before the 17th.
Yep,
yeah,
so May 3rd.
May 3rd.
But it is
Yeah.
contingent on the budget being done.
Well, we're expecting by the 19th, we're going to vote the articles. And if the budget isn't done, I guess May 3rd would be nailing it off to give it to the select board. But actually, Jim, do you think it would be a regular FinCom night we would try to do the drafting of that? Or I think we worked during the day and got it.
Yeah, I thought we worked separate. We did that separately, not so as not to tie up a FinCom meeting.
Right.
We did it as a subcommittee.
Right. Yeah.
Which is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe we can think about the date for that and set it later, because we know it will be after some of these dates.
Yeah.
It'll be after the 19th. We know that much.
Yes. Yeah. And it might take a couple, and maybe it'll take a couple.
It did. Yeah. Okay.
You could probably get 75% of it done now.
Copper plate.
So let's see. Is there any other pieces that come up? I just feel a little bit lost. Q&A on the 17th. Checking if the moderator's available. And guess that's it. I don't know how to look.
All right. We can always add to it if someone else has some other something that we've missed?
Mm-hmm.
We will.
Yeah. Did we want to go through the expense? I haven't seen has there been a recent expense report?
No, not that I've seen. No,
Yeah.
no.
We went over it last time, the old one, so.
Is there anything to cover on expense report, or is that something, Becky, I'm not sure what the timing is now for your next release?
I'm checking my account. I think I sent one out. I thought I sent one out close to just after the last meeting, but
Nope, you didn't.
It was on the 7th of March. We got one. Is that?
Yeah, that was the last one.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah, that was just 2 weeks ago. So I don't have the new one since the 7th of March.
Income March.
I probably will get it. I usually get it late Tuesday night or sometime on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, but I don't have it yet.
You
But
said
the 7th was the last one.
You sent one out on the 7th?
I don't know about that.
I don't have one from the
I
7th.
thought Susie just said she had one.
I don't think so.
The one I think I have.
The last one I have is from the 3rd, March 3rd.
Was it mid-date? Somehow the date doesn't print on these. It just falls off the bottom edge.
Yeah, I'm going through email, and the last one that I received was on March 3rd. And if you go to the bottom of each page, it'll say March 3rd.
So then the next one would have been around the 17th, and I don't have that one yet.
Okay.
I looked through them and that, we're in mid-March, it's about 70% of the year. So I was just looking at figures that came, that were exceedingly low or exceedingly high from there. And I noticed that like the line 15, 131, 700 on page 1, the FinCom committee expense, couldn't read it. It says that there's nothing expended, but the balance has gone down. So I don't know. I thought the money for the paving would have been gone, but it says nothing has been expended from that.
So you're talking about the reserve, not your expenses.
Oh, yeah, reserve, sorry.
Okay, so I'll follow up with her to see why that hasn't hit yet.
Maybe I got it wrong still.
Because I could have sworn there was a $40,000 balance in the last report I looked at.
Yeah, that's what it says. So it says budget revisions minus 34,000. But then it says expended percentage is 0. So I don't know, that line looks a little funny.
Okay, anything else on expense reports? Becky, you can just check to see if there's a more recent one that we can look at.
I know I don't have one, Jim. I looked through and I have not yet received it. Like I said, the schedule is, I should be receiving one shortly.
Okay.
After everything's posted.
Okay, so unless somebody has something from a prior one, then we can move on.
Yeah.
Okay. Committee reports, anything committees wise? I think we've captured capital pretty well. Other committees, updates?
Nothing from the school committee concerning finances. They are working on understanding a good process to review building issues so that they can bring them up and understanding who to talk to when. So that was part of their discussion.
And personnel, I know you guys all were, there was a big discussion at our last FinCom meeting. Not anything since?
No, we did meet.
Then?
Well, no, we met recently, but there's really nothing to report at this point about the goings-ons in that meeting.
Okay. I don't know. I wasn't around for a couple of meetings. The fire chief study committee has wrapped up. I don't know. Are you all up to date on that? That it did wrap up, and the findings were presented to the select board. Is that new information to you, or you're all aware of that?
It happened 3 weeks ago or a month ago.
Yeah. So everybody's up to date on that. There is a report. I don't know if have you all seen the report?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'll send everyone the report on the committee recommendations that was presented to the select board. And this is probably mid-February, so just about a month, just over a month ago.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Next meeting is April 5th.
Yep.
Wait.
Anything else we're missing?
No.
Good.
I'm finishing up an email to Paul Lyons to moderate on May 17th.
Okay, cool.
Great.
And have we got, did you send us a recent draft of the FY23 budget, Becky? I must have dragged up an old one.
No, I haven't. I just had sent you the two, and for this week I had only gotten those changes in, and my email crashed yesterday, and I just am getting it operational. So I apologize for not getting more out.
Yep.
But
Should we wait until you plug in the new salary information into the budget, or?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna finish the new salary, including the anomaly. That will see if we can correct that. And I think and the longevity, and go back through and make sure that the retirement figure is on target. And then I'll send it back out.
Great.
That sounds good.
Cool.
I make
Great.
a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Mm-hmm.
Third.
Wait,
That was quick.
anybody? George?
Abernathy, aye.
Grove's eye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
No Celtics tonight.
Yeah, right.
Walton, aye. I'm still snoozing.
Utah, right? Utah.
No,
Oh, they look awesome.
that's tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
It's too good to be true.
Well, enjoy it while you can, at least.
Yeah, I am.
Hey, they get some
I
tough
know.
games coming up.
Yeah.
They do.
Some-
The schedule is brutal.
Mm.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
You too.
Hey, why is my mouse not working? The mouse.
Mouse
I got that.
Susie.
I got that.